Drill Deal Oil Tycoon is a really well thought out and put together tycoon and production chain simulator. It sees you tasked with looking after and maintaining an oil rig, with lots of different resources being generated as a result of that oil. You'll need to keep your staff managed and up to date and happy and entertained so that they stay productive, and you need to make sure that you're efficient with everything that you produce, that it matches the contracts that you sign up for, and what you ships on time. There's lots of extra random events to keep an eye on, and I'll try and explain the main concepts of this game without getting too bogged down, but I'll be referring to the layout of the screen throughout loads of this review, so or at least the early part, so please bear with. When you start off at the beginning of every single level, and it's a campaign that goes through several levels, and halfway through you unlock Sandbox to play about with, you'll have a oil rig with a drill in the centre and very little else. You'll need to hire some staff, and staff have different skills and skill levels. So some of them might be good at drilling, some of them might have chemical skills, so you'd want them changing compounds of the oil into other things. Some of them might be better at being a chef, so they can look after the barracks and the kitchen. It could be that they're good at entertainment, so therefore they're put in charge of the cinema or the gym that you put on later on, all in the effort to keep your workers happy and entertained so that they stay productive. Every single kind of room, I guess, or production thing that you put on your oil rig needs to be manned in either a day or a night shift pattern. If someone's not assigned, it's not producing. And so what you'll be doing is hiring based on the skills that you need for the things that you're producing. And there's almost like a little bit of a puzzle element to try and shift everything in together. Because one of the biggest detractors of efficiency and productivity is not just whether or not skills are matched to the actual jobs that they're given, but also the noise pollution that takes place on the oil rig. So if you put a massive generator next to the sleeping quarters, they ain't sleeping, so therefore they're not going to be getting enough happiness put back into their happiness meter, and that directly affects their productivity. What you're producing is various different oils, gasoline, lubricants, asphalt, all kinds of different products, and then you sell them off in contracts. You keep an eye on what you've got going on the left top hand side of the screen, and what's really key about this is it tells you what your daily production is of what you're creating, but also where that's then used in the production chain, because everything starts off with gas, and then that produces the crude oil which comes out of the drill, and then you use that oil to produce various different other compounds or chemicals depending on what production you kind of switch on, build, invest in through your research tree, so that you can then match the contracts that are available in the contract area. Literally everything in this game boils down to this. So if you're selling something at a rate that you can't produce it, you're not fulfilling the contracts, therefore you don't get paid. That then affects your reputation, which is on the top right hand side of the screen in like a little rosette badge with a number inside. The more reputation you get, the more people are prepared to deal with you in bigger quantities, and sometimes that drives some of your sale price a little bit as well. That then also means that you get options to play with more contracts and so on and so forth. So it's a cyclic effect. You basically make sure that you stay within your means, and you'll slowly get through this game one way or another. It's just that you'll be looking to optimize and really eke out all of the pounds wherever possible. The reason for that is everything, and I mean everything, costs cash. If you want building blocks to expand out to other little mini platforms to kind of situate around your rig, that costs building blocks. Building blocks cost money, and it costs money to ship them to you as well. So you need to do it on bulk and be able to afford that. Your crew need food, and they need medicine, and they need water that's purified. All of that costs money, and then it costs money to store as well. And the food ingredients, you might have a kitchen that creates all of the meals, and there's different quality of meals that give different happiness back to you. But getting those raw food ingredients in goes on that same ship as the building blocks. So does the medicine for the first aid kit, and the first aid room and the hospital you can potentially have on there as you upgrade through the tree. it all needs to be ferried in. There's a time lag to that as well, so you have to keep on the ball and really understand what's going out and what's coming in, and that's part of the satisfaction of getting that right and running right the way up to the point where you're keeping things at an even kill and milking every pound out of it and all the money out of it that you can. As you're doing this, not only are all of the resources costing money and all of the building costing money, but so does unlocking new contracts, so does obviously hiring new staff and their wages come into effect, but also so does unlocking anything through research as well. There's 4 different research trees. One's for production, to unlock new things for you to build and stick in, and then upgrade those like chemical plants or something like that into like an advanced one and then an expert one, which then allows you to make more or different things, and you can switch between what they produce on a flick of a switch, which is quite cool. But it also allows you to improve the quality of things as well. So there's an employee care section, which is all around giving entertainment value to and happiness back to your staff, but also like dealing with HR. So that then means that you get access to better quality workers. The flip side of that is that they cost more, even if they do produce more, but they also have a higher expectation of living. So if you're just getting people to eat poor meals and then you employ a 3-star worker, they need plain. And if you give them a poor meal, they get unhappy, they get to a point of unhappiness, and then they walk out and leave. So you need to kind of incrementally move up the ladder, and every level revolves around this in some degree. And that's what I mean about this game being almost like a production chain, because your production chain doesn't just include getting the gas to the oil, to the gasoline, to the sulfur, to the asphalt, and building all of those, getting the contracts and shipping them off. But as part of that, the production chain is getting the money to be able to make enough profit with what you've got, unlocking the next contract, then putting in place the upgrade to be able to do that, then arranging the contract, milking the money, improving, getting the workers in at the same time, at the same pace, to be able to upskill them through HR or better like worker quarters and things like that. It all works really, really nicely together and is good fun. Outside of that, there's also a couple of extra bonus things that fly off as you're going around in Deal 2. The first one is around rescuing people. So there's randomised events. Some of them will involve tourists coming to visit or CEOs, or it might just be a passing boat starts to capsize and there's all these people swimming in the water. These kind of things allow you to build a rescue tower, and then you turn into like a clickable little mini game where you then throw out rubber rings to try and save all of the people drowning in the water. Save them all gives you more reputation, which offers you up better happiness for your staff, and so on and so forth. Let them drown, and that will be a problem for your reputation and therefore the morale of your staff. On the flip side of that, there's also pirates that circle around in the sea, and some levels are specifically based around battling off pirates. And what you'll be doing is building defence turrets and then upgrading them so that you can then basically use that same thing, and instead of throwing out lifeboats, you're clicking to where you think the boat's going to be so that you can then start shoot out cannon missiles and bomb and sink those pirate ships. These are good fun. The pirate ships especially are really tricky because if they come en masse and you aren't prepared, they will attack your oil rig. And each room has HP, and as it decreases, either through wear just from general day-to-day use of it being in the oil rig, or from a pirate throwing loads of bombs at it, it will explode. Your workers can die. They can fall off the oil rig and need saving. And so there's some like general well-being that's going on at the same time. And I had a couple of workers die, and that affects morale for several kind of day cycles as you move from day to night and back again for the next shipment of stuff as it goes along. There's also an element called exhibitions, and this allows you to hire a couple of staff to go out on a boat and find various different scrap or other additional things on surrounding islands, sunken treasure, all of that kind of stuff. And that's good fun as well, because sometimes that gives you a big influx of a certain type of material that can kickstart an improvement or an upgrade or something to your oil rig too. Although I must admit, for a lot of the game I didn't need to feel like I invested time in that, but it was there for good fun and a little additional mini game when it came along. Down in the bottom right hand side of the screen there are also different viewpoints as well, so that you can view either the production train of how you get to a certain type of material, or you can view things like worker happiness, noise pollution, whether or not things are connected or not. And there's this hidden production bonus gameplay mechanic, which is where you can put buildings next to each other and that will boost their productivity. But if you can't put them next to each other, because it's actually quite costly to like deconstruct something and move it somewhere else, and things are unlocked in a kind of not ramshackle way, but it's not really nicely connected to how the system works. There's these other connector pipes that you can use, and then you start connecting up the different production lines by pipes, which then increases the overall production of stuff. So you can have like a little mini spaghetti maze going on behind the scenes as well. Again, not something you absolutely have to dive into, because if you just look at the bare mechanics and keep yourself slowly increasing production and getting into profit, you'll get there eventually. But there's all of this kind of efficiency stuff that I would say, and if you're big into efficiency and you really like things like maybe Factorio and stuff like that, I can see people really getting into like milking every single piece of money and productivity out of the whole setup. If I was to be critical about Drill Deal, the main thing that I would say is that the scenarios all start off with things relatively similar, and I found that I was doing the same thing in each scenario, but what was happening was that each scenario just offered up parts of a tech tree, and so I felt like I was repeating the same early steps over and over and over again, and that meant that the early game felt a little bit slow to me when I was later on in the campaign. But I think that's just a trade-off between getting comfortable with an experience and then kind of speeding forward. Thankfully, you can speed forward the game up to 4 times speed, which was helpful, and I was definitely doing that by the time I'd got to like mission 4 or 5. But yeah, I think there is a potential for there to be early game staleness as you get towards the end of the campaign, just a little bit. But each scenario can be completed at least in 1 star within, I'd say, an hour and a half. I'm not necessarily the fastest player out there, but each mission has 2 submissions as well, and to get to 3 stars for each mission does take a little bit longer. There's about 10 missions I think there was in all. Sandbox unlocks after number 5, and that was good fun because that just lets you build the oil drill that you want and really sit there and maximise efficiency and production value. So yeah, really interesting game. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Don't think it'll be for everyone, but I was pleasantly surprised at the depth and the detail and just how well put together all of the different game mechanics are, and I think a lot of other Tycoon games could learn a lot from how Drill Deal takes a very simple mechanic and does an awful lot with it. Written review will be over on highplanegames.com at the weekend. You guys take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.